all the time during my central banking career. It's in fact a privilege to address here. Before I came here, I thought I would not make any speeches, only open for Q&A, because I thought, especially when the media is present, we would like to have much more interactive session. But for the benefit of other distinguished guests and others, I'll make a brief remarks on what's going on, what are our plans, and how we see the current economic conditions and the crisis situation, how we are planning to overcome this situation going forward. Because I think one of the reasons why I thought I will not talk too much, because I have been on the media several times the last couple of weeks, and I'm not someone who would like to come very often in media. So I'd like to, whenever I have to communicate something, only when I come. This is I actually, because I know there's a large gathering of media. That's why I thought I should come and give you opportunity to at least update or opportunity to have any clarifications from the central bank. That is the reason I thought I accepted. In reason, otherwise my policy, as a lot of media personnel know, I will have usually central bank will have regular communications, and in addition, if there are this kind of gathering, only I come and speak. Otherwise, what I am experiencing in Sri Lanka, even international media, a lot of media would like to have separate interviews or statements, each and every one. So if I start doing that, I wouldn't have any time to do anything. So this, asking for everyone having separate interviews, I think that's best that this gathering is here. Let me just begin with the current situation. Obviously, I think I have already expressed these ideas and shared with you what we are experiencing now is one of the worst economic crises that Sri Lanka has experienced since independence. And this is mainly coming out of, as what I see as economist, is a balance of payment crisis. As a result, it has now basically, translated into not only economic crisis, but also a political, social unrest, political crisis. As a result of this economic hardships, people are basically experiencing as a result of these difficulties that we are having right now. And I don't want to, basically do any post-mortem why this has happened in the past. I will be only focusing on the current situation, how we are going to deal with in the future. No point of talking about why that's happened, blaming everyone, or this government, that government, this personality. I think that's not way to deal with that. So with that, as I said, the key major issue we are facing right now is what, as I said, balance of payment crisis, which means foreign exchange crisis, where the level of available liquid reserves, foreign exchange reserves we are having right now is not sufficient for us to even to meet, say, a couple of weeks import requirements. Forget about our debt service payments. If you look at debt obligations, external debt obligations, as you already know, what we had before we announced the debt standstill was around $6 billion per year in next several years. Those are our obligations to external creditors before we announced this debt standstill on 12th of April this year. Soon after I took the position, I actually realized we are not in a position to service our debt obligations. Even in the following week, that we had the obligation to about $200 million, but we had only about, say, less than $10 million in our resource. So then soon, to prevent what we call hard defaults, we were able to, that time, get the finance minister and the government to agree to this, to announce this debt standstill. At least we will we were able to announce to our creditors, this is the situation we are in. We will not be able to, it's not, if you look at the Sri Lankan history, our debt service obligations, always Sri Lanka's willingness to meet debt service payments were always there, is still there. But our ability to meet those debt service payments was almost nothing when I took over this position. That's where we had to do this. It's not the best choice, but out of the bad choices, this was the best bad choice that we had to make. On 12th of April, that we had to announce to our creditors, external creditors, that we are not in a position to meet your obligations. Please give us some more time, so that we invite them to come on to kind of a negotiation and give us some relief on the basis that we will, if you give us some relief, we will be able to meet your obligations over a longer period of time with some relief that we would like to have from you. On that basis, we made the announcement on the 12th of April. With that, we have taken out our obligations at least until we come to a consensus with our creditors. We got some relief that we are not going to meet those debt service obligations. We probably for this year, with that, we can save at least, we don't need to find reserves, foreign exchange reserves, about $2.5 to $3 billion, at least for this year, until we reach an agreement, hoping to reach an agreement within about 6-month period. So, but still, countries' requirement import expenditure, essential imports, even minimum essential imports, still we did not have sufficient resources because we are a country, historically, we have been importing a lot than what we are exporting, or our foreign exchange earnings have been much less than what we have been earning in foreign exchange, what we call current account deficit of the balance of payment account. It has always been a deficit for last 70 years, except for some years in early 1950s where we had the kind of a commodity export boom in early 1950s. Since then, we have been running deficits. But at the beginning, we had long-term concessional loans and very longer period external borrowings. It was not a problem. But since late about early 2005-06 onwards, we have started to borrow on commercial basis because our country's per capita incomes have been going above some threshold, and we had to start borrowing commercial because still we were running current account deficits. For example, foreign exchange earnings so much less than what we have been earning as a country. That was the reason why successive government had to borrow, and then commercial debt levels has gone up to a certain level, and then we have come to this situation. So now, but still the challenge when I took over was to how to at least find financing for day-to-day essential imports. Forget about anything else. Petrol, diesel, gas, essential food items, pharmaceuticals are the essential 5 items that we have been focusing. Even for that, we were struggling to find essential foreign exchange to provide all these essential ones. This is where we have been, we experienced a lot of queues, a lot of protests, all these things are happening since last couple of months. So this were the situation that we experience even right now, and I think I have to mention the government of India has helped a lot, at least to finance or support this short-term essential import expenditure in terms of the one is in the line of credit for 1 billion, then another 500 million petroleum importing facility, and that is going to be extended for another 500 million. Then we have this what they call Asian Clearing Union, the accumulation of the dollars with the central bank when we import a lot of stuff from India. So that money is also available for us to be able to use to finance some of the imports. So we are managing with this kind of limited inflows. And also in addition, in the meantime, we started negotiating with the World Bank, the ADB, some of the multilateral agencies like AIIB, to at least try to get some emergency financing out of the existing ongoing projects from those institutions. Even from those institutions, we have been able to mobilize some of the money, some of funds, by postponing or suspending some of the non-priority projects and repurposing that money for emergency, emergency needs like petroleum, gas, food items. So with that, we have been able to manage so far. If you look at, say, for example, until last week, with the political instability, all these things were delayed. And as a result, there were accumulated shortages. And as a result, we saw again longer queues for essential items. But thanks to some of the repurposing money that we got from World Bank, we have been able to ease some of the tightness that we are seeing in the supply chains. For example, now we have been able to finance all the ships, those who were waiting outside the harbor, and because we were not able to finance or provide foreign exchange for those, they were waiting, not unloading, but now we have cleared everything. But we think even immediate next couple of weeks, we have cleared at least some of the essential shipments. So that is some relief. Hopefully you will see this situation, the shortages probably would be easing in next until at least next 2 weeks with the support of some short-term money. We are hoping to continue and manage the situation going forward. So in this situation, this is where, from the central bank side, we are trying to encourage at least to utilize whatever available foreign exchange earnings which are coming to this country in terms of export proceeds, in terms of export of services, in terms of remittances, that we are trying to prioritize and utilize all these exchange inflows only to provide at least to meet those essential import expenditure. That is why one part of the reasons that we impose a lot of restrictions, for example, making it compulsory for exporters to repatriate and conversion, and making it compulsory for some of the exporter services to repatriate and conversion. These are not best measures, but given the situation, these are the things we are compelled to do. It is, in my personal view, those are not the best measures, but in a situation, there's no other choice. We had to bring in all these measures. And also one other, the development that we are seeing as a result of central bank was fixing exchange rate at a certain rate for a long period. There was a parallel black market developed outside the banking system, and that market was able to attract or divert a lot of foreign exchange inflows, even the limited inflows, those are coming into the country, basically were diverting into this grey market activities, and that money have been using to finance what we call non-essential imports. So that's why we had to impose certain restrictions and curtail all the grey market activities and trying to bring that money into the banking system. This is why we impose bans on import open accounts, what we call so. And this is where a lot of money that's coming outside the banking system being routed through fund some of the non-essential imports. And as a result, we were having even more shortages and more acute shortage of foreign exchange in the banking system. This is where a lot of banks are still facing foreign exchange liquidity issues in the whole banking sector, and to the large extent to state banks, those who have been funding Petroleum Corporation, Electricity Board, and the government as well. So these are the challenges we are facing. So how we are going to address this situation? Obviously, when a country facing a balance of payment situation, we are a member of the International Monetary Fund. So International Monetary Fund mandate is to help member countries in this kind of a balance of payment crisis. So they have a mandate to help member countries, and we have the right to ask for the assistance from the from the IMF. That is where I think government had made the decision some time ago, but it was not progressing very well. But now, since I took the position, and also with my colleague Mahinda Sirwadan taking the position as Secretary of Treasury, and also with the Finance Minister Ali Sabri, we were trying to expedite this process and trying to reach an agreement with the IMF sooner the better, so that their milestone is that first part of approach is to negotiate a program with the IMF and seek financial assistance to fill the external financing, part of the external financing gap, and commit to, on the basis of our commitment to overall macro fiscal program, together with medium to long-term structural reforms that we need to implement in this country to increase our ability to grow faster going forward over a medium to long-term basis. So that is where now we are trying to expedite that process, and we are trying to reach an agreement with the IMF within the shortest possible time. Again, there were some disturbances as a result of some events that happened in the last couple of weeks, and with that, the instability in the political system also did not help for us to expedite that process. Now, anyway, now we have some stability in the governments. We have a cabinet, the Prime Minister, and hopefully there will be some more proper kind of government in place, at least to take this program move forward. That is one of the one channel, one way, one approach. The other approach, as I mentioned earlier, same time we have to get our external creditors agreed to what they call consensus on debt restructuring, external debt restructuring. That process is even more difficult process. So in our experience, and I have been involved in negotiating several IMF programs even in the past, if we had to negotiate only IMF program, it's only a 2-3 months process. We negotiate, we agree to, we put forward our economic program and reform program, and if they are fine with that, then they will say, okay, we will fund your program. But this time it is much more complicated, because our external debt, our overall debt situation is not sustainable. In this kind of situation, IMF cannot provide any financial assistance unless we come to an agreement with creditors that we bring our debts into a more sustainable level. That is the other exercise we are trying to achieve on the other side. That is a much more complicated process, because we have never ever restructured or defaulted in debt. It's the first time we are doing this, and none of us have exposure and experience in doing this. There's a separate structured process for us to do that. First one is we have to appoint what they call financial and legal advisors who deal with the creditors. And I think that's probably, we are all finalized, and it probably go on to the cabinet today. And once that is approved by the cabinet, that's a starting point of debt restructuring process. Then again the challenge is that it is to get the consent, the agreement from our creditors to give us some relief. It is a kind of a give and take position. It's not only our choice. We have to tell them, okay, this is the situation we are in. This is our debt sustainability. These are the reforms we will be committing to bring our debt to a sustainable level based on what they call debt sustainability analysis conducted by the IMF staff. And the objective is for us to bring debt into a sustainable level. We have to show them we are on a correct path in terms of fiscal policy, the fiscal deficits. For example, what they call primary deficit, overall fiscal deficit, and then the level of debt going forward. Once we show that, then creditors will say, okay, this is your contribution, you will tighten your fiscal policies, you will generate primary surpluses. If you do that, we also will be happy to make a contribution by giving us a relief on our debt service payments, either by having a haircut or either by having interest rate relief or either giving us a reprofiling or extending maturities. Either way, we can, the different creditors can agree on a different basis. So if you look at our creditors, there are three major components. One large one is what they call international sovereign bond holders. Those are global commercial investors. Those who are invested in Sri Lankan government issues sovereign bonds. That is almost about, I think, 35% of our debt. That is the largest component. So first we have to, the advisors will approach them and try to negotiate with them and seek some relief on the debt service payment. That's on one side. Then other side is what we call Paris Club. The traditional Paris Club members, we have some obligations to them as well. Then mostly European countries, Japan included in the Paris Club. Then we have to negotiate with the Paris Club. That's a good part of that is because they have used to this kind of debt restructuring process. So it's easier to negotiate with the group of the Paris Club countries. Then we have another group, what we call non-Paris Club, like China and India. Those we have to negotiate separately. So Paris Club, non-Paris Club, commercial debt. Those are the three major components. Now we will be starting the process. Once we appoint the financial advisors and legal advisors probably today, then this process will start. That based on past experiences, this process could take at least 6 months. Because it's a complicated process. We have to a lot of technical negotiations and going back and forth and get them agree to a certain relief on the basis of our commitments to bring into sustainable debt levels. That is another process we are going ahead. So the question is that the biggest challenge right now we are facing, for us to at least reach one milestone, which is to reach an agreement with the IMF. For a staff level, what we call staff level agreement means we agree on policies and reforms with the IMF, then they will announce, okay, IMF has agreed with the government that certain policy measures, we have agreement, then finance minister and government sign a letter and then submit that proposal to the executive board. Once that is approved, then IMF process commences with the overall 3-year program and they will commit to a certain amount of external financing, and also at that point other multilateral agencies and other agencies also will come on board saying that okay, this is our financial external financing gap for next 3 years, for example, then IMF will contribute by this amount, then the other multilateral agency will contribute by this amount, and at some point we will have access, then creditors also will contribute by this amount in terms of debt relief, and also at some point hopefully we will be able to go back to the commercial markets and raise whatever the balance requirement from commercial markets. This is the overall plan. So right now the challenge what we are facing here is how we can live until that point. As I mentioned earlier, right now we have almost very small amount of resource, and we will be getting some inflows in terms of what I mentioned earlier, Indian line of credit, ASU balances, and some World Bank ADB money. We will have some funds, but that is not sufficient. That is where we think economy will be going through a contractionary phase. So when you have this kind of restrictions, when we don't have freedom to import whatever we want to import for normal economic activities other than essentials, then minimum kind of economic activities will be happening in this country next 3 to 6 months, which means economy will be contracting. There's no other choice. No one can expect when we are facing a balance of payment crisis, this kind of crisis, an economy to grow compared to last year. That's not a realistic expectations. This way, I think in our expectations, economy will be contracting at the highest rate this year compared to any other years that we have experienced in the history. It will be a sharpest contraction in terms of economic growth this year as a result of this kind of shortages. This is where one can. This is where a lot of people are asking the question and coming to central bank asking, here we have industry, we don't have raw materials, we can't operate. Can you please help us? We are not in a position because right now the priority for us is to at least provide essential items for at least people to have their day-to-day minimum activities or minimum at least transport, fuel, all these things. That's a priority. Once we provide that facility, if there's anything else, then we obviously try to support other activities. That is that. So this is where the government and the central bank, now we have been approaching several other possible sources to attract or get some bridging financing for next, say, at least to manage the situation comfortably, at least in 2-3 months. Then hopefully we have IMF program. After that, situation will be easy. So this is a challenging period. And this is why when I took this position, I expected that situation will get worse before it get better. Now I can see from time to time it was getting better and again going back to worse and again getting better. So now in this couple of weeks we can see some shortages may not be there, some easing. If we are able to get some more financing in next couple of weeks, probably we can continue that supply, at least essential supplies at a sufficient level. And then next challenge is to whether can we get the economy back on track. The normal circumstances, that won't happen in this year. That will happen only from, at least from next year. Probably in my expectations, if we are able to complete what we are planning to do now, one is the important one, IMF negotiations, and second one is debt restructuring. If we can complete these two processes within about 6 to 7 months, I think economy can be stabilized in 12 months' time. Back to, I'm not telling you that all prices will be coming down. Economy will be stabilized at a different level. Still, you will see inflation maybe 30-40%. That will continue. That is where other social issues, like when inflation is running at 30-40%, that's already happened. No one can bring down the inflation below 30-40% in next 6 months. As central bank, I cannot give that assurance because that has already happened. Because of the one-off increases in some of the prices also will have to be adjusted. Inflation will be running high. This is where the issue. People who are poor and vulnerable will be severely affected. So people will find it difficult to, especially low-income people, poor people, will be difficult to live out of their incomes unless government can provide some support. That is where I think other important part in this exercise, while we are trying to implement all the difficult reforms, we need to protect poor and vulnerable who will be affected out of this the crisis situation. That is where thankfully World Bank has stepped in and given us some short-term relief to support at least low-income poor people, some kind of a cash grant or some kind of support or fertilizer support or some cash grant, at least some relief for those people to kind of smooth out the situation and survive in this kind of situation. Not that you can't expect same kind of living standards, and obviously during this period you will see poverty levels will be increasing in this country. A lot of people will be falling below the poverty line, and when the economy is in a contracting situation, we are going to see a lot more people unemployed by SMEs, some of the firms, those who are not being able to have normal operations, not same kind of an only sector, as far as I can see, will be continuing, and hopefully that will continue, export-oriented sectors because of the currency depreciation, and they are in a much better position to continue and earn comfortably going forward. That is where I think in a way, that's a good incentive. At least if the foreign exchange earning sectors, there's already incentive in terms of rupee was 200 rupees earlier, now 360 rupees. So there's a significant advantage. At least if that incentive, because it's there, we are hoping that that sector will continue to perform better. That will at least give us some cushion and some support in terms of foreign exchange, necessary foreign exchange supply into this country. That's why we are urging export and foreign exchange earners. If you earn foreign exchange out of your activities, please bring that money into the country and bring that money through a banking system. At least then, one that will help us to prioritize and provide essential things, not only for all the country, but also for you as smooth operations, even in your industries. That is why, as I said, we are bringing measures to encourage this money to be coming into the banking system. And I'm making this request even for people who are expatriates who are living abroad. If they send their remittances through the banking channel, it will help your country people at least to meet day-to-day essential items. So that's what we are trying to do right now. So these are I don't know whether this is the current situation. These are two plans I just mentioned. I think I would like to stop here. I think I'm sure there will be a lot of questions, and this is where I really like to have a conversation and engage and give you clarifications on any questions that you have. Thank you.